Spin-up tornadoes. These tornadoes might not seem like much. They move fast, but look weak, almost pathetic. Don't be fooled though. Spin-up tornadoes can form out of nowhere, and disappear just as quickly. Spin-ups often form along the leading edge of squall lines, which if you didn't know are those long bands of thunderstorms that stretch for dozens of miles across the landscape. Hidden within these lines are sometimes tiny embedded supercells. These little rotating storms briefly take shape and drop a quick tornado, which then vanishes in seconds or minutes. These tornadoes are usually on the weaker end, between EF0 to EF1 in strength, but that doesn't mean that they're totally harmless. They can shatter windows with flying debris, tip over trees, and even flip vehicles if they pass directly over them. What makes spin-ups truly dangerous is how sudden they hit places. Meteorologists often struggle to spot them ahead of time because they don't show that classic hook echo you see with stronger supercells. In fact, on radar, there might be no clear signature visible at all. It's because of this why these tornadoes often strike with little or no warning. Victims later report that they came out of nowhere, leaving many of them wondering what just happened.
And it's like we had just bombed. Neighbors I've never seen are out on the street saying, "What happened?"
Make no mistake, these weaker tornadoes can still cause injuries to people who didn't expect them. And for those living in mobile or manufactured homes, these tornadoes are especially dangerous. They are capable of lifting those structures up off the ground and causing serious injuries to those inside, or worse. That's why it's always important to be prepared for severe weather. Rope tornadoes. Next, we've got the rope tornado. A great example of a rope I've picked is the Goshen County, Wyoming tornado from June 5th, 2009, or more specifically, its dramatic roping out phase that you can see here. As the name gives away, rope tornadoes are typically long, thin, and shaped like a piece of rope. What a shocker. But what makes them really cool is how they move. As they weaken, they can twist, bend, and dance across the landscape, creating these incredible, almost artistic shapes in the sky. They're some of the most photogenic tornado types out there, any storm chaser's dream. You can often spot them moving gracefully across open fields like a dancing ribbon, but they can move into populated areas too, so don't feel too safe. Now, ropes can appear at different stages of a tornado's life. Sometimes they form early on, when a funnel first touches down. Other times, they show up at the end, when a powerful tornado is winding down. Chasers often like to call this stage roping out. In fact, some of the most infamous tornadoes ever recorded, like Gerald 1997 and Moore 2013, both had crazy rope phases. Ropes are one of the most common tornado shapes you'll come across, but don't let their size fool you. These things are still capable of causing significant damage and casualties. In fact, their skinny shape can make them more dangerous than they look. They can move erratically, shift direction suddenly, and catch people off guard. The scariest part is that many tornadoes start out as ropes and can rapidly grow into something much larger and stronger. The opposite can happen too, where a rope tightens up and narrows into a violent drill bit tornado. But we'll talk about those in a bit. Cone tornadoes. Up next is one of the most recognizable tornado shapes out there, the cone tornado. A great example of a cone I've picked is the Bennington, Kansas tornado from May 28, 2013. A beautifully structured, very slow-moving cone that many chasers love to watch. As the name gives away, cone tornadoes are wider at the top but shrink in size closer to the ground, forming that classic cone shape. Compared to the skinnier ropes, cones have a wider footprint, which means they can affect a larger area. But one thing to note here is that shape doesn't equal strength. Cone tornadoes can range anywhere from weak EF0s to violent EF5s. By the way, that's something important to remember with all types of tornadoes. Their shape doesn't determine how powerful they are, it's always based on the damage they cause. Cones often appear as a tornado is intensifying, growing from a narrow rope into that broader, more stable funnel. From there, it might keep growing into a massive wedge, or eventually weaken and rope out again. Their shape often means that the parent supercell is strong and well organized, with defined rotation. For meteorologists, that's actually a good thing. Cones usually show clear radar signatures that make it easier for them to issue timely warnings that help save lives. Storm chasers can appreciate them too, not just because they're easier to spot, but because cones reveal so much about the tornado's anatomy and general movement. Cone tornadoes are also some of the most photogenic types out there. You might say they're the Goldilocks of tornadoes. Not a massive wedge, but not a skinny rope either. They fit the perfect middle ground that is just right for photography and video. They can even develop debris fields near the ground that give them this dramatic, almost Hollywood look. Stovepipe tornadoes. Now let's move on to the cousin of the cone tornado, the stovepipe. One of the best examples of a stovepipe I've picked is the Dickens, Nebraska tornado from June 16th, 2025, which is just an absolute textbook stovepipe in every sense of the word. Stovepipe tornadoes look like tall, even cylinders that stay about the same width from the ground all the way up to the cloud base. If you've ever seen one of those old-fashioned metal pipes venting smoke from a wood stove to the outside, that's exactly what they're named after. These tornadoes are instantly recognizable to chasers, even from miles away. Their vertical, clean outline and symmetrical shape make them very easy to spot, and honestly, pretty photogenic too. Just like cones, debris fields can circle around them at the base, making them look intimidating as well. Another similarity to cones is that stovepipes tend to come from strong, well-organized supercells. Their tight rotation also makes stovepipes easier for meteorologists to spot on radar and issue warnings. They tend to be among the more destructive forms of tornadoes, but this can depend on a lot of stuff, so don't count on it. Wedge tornadoes. Wedges are just absolute units, one of the most dangerous tornado types of them all. A great example of a wedge I've picked is the Bridge Creek Moor, Oklahoma tornado from May 3rd, 1999, an absolute beast, not only for its size, but for its violence too. Wedges are really big, but not every big tornado actually qualifies as one. According to the National Weather Service, a tornado is considered a wedge when it's at least as wide on the ground as it is tall from the ground up to the cloud base. I couldn't find out where the term wedge came from or why it's used, but if I had to guess, it probably came from their resemblance to those wedges you jam under doors to keep them open. I mean, it does kinda check out. Many people think that all wedges are violent, but that's not true. While many of the strongest tornadoes ever recorded have been wedges, like I said, shape doesn't prove strength. There have been many examples of lower rated wedges and just as many violent tornadoes that weren't wedge shaped at all. What actually causes a tornado to wedge out has more to do with environmental factors. Things like a low environmental cloud base and lots of moisture underneath it, instead of pure power. That said, wedges are still among the, if not the most dangerous tornado types out there because of their sheer size. They can carve damage paths miles wide, destroying everything in the way. Entire neighborhoods can vanish in minutes, and their scars are often visible all the way from satellite view. Because their parent storms are usually so strong, wedges can also last a lot longer, staying on the ground for up to a few hours, tearing through multiple communities before finally dying out. Their size doesn't always make them super obvious, though. They can be wrapped in rain or blend perfectly into the dark base of their parent storm, making them very hard to spot until it's too late. Even experienced storm chasers can sometimes struggle to tell where the storm ends and the tornado begins. On radar, the tornadic circulation can blend in with the larger rotation of the supercell every now and then, which can leave meteorologists unsure if the tornado is on the ground at that moment. And since we're on the topic of wedges, this part wouldn't be complete without mentioning the El Reno, Oklahoma tornado from May 31st, 2013, a 2.6 mile wide final boss tornado, the widest ever recorded. Just look at it. From far away, it's almost impossible to tell where the storm ends and the funnel begins, but from up close, yeah, I really wouldn't want to be chasing that thing.